Okay, so let me tell you, the short story collections came through in 2019. So stay tuned to find out my favorite reads of last year. Also, new channel look. I hope you like it. Hey fam, nice to see you here and welcome to those who are new to the channel. This is my list of books that I absolutely loved in 2019. There are 20 of them, so I'm going to be starting from middle grade and working my way to the pièces de la résistance, which are the short story collections that stole my heart and my soul a little bit. And here we go. So the first book that I want to talk about is The Forgotten Girl by India Hill Brown. As we know, India Hill is India. I hope we're on a first name basis. We've never met, but you know. So this is her debut middle grade novel, and this is about a little girl who is with her best friend in the woods when she realizes that there's this strange presence around her, and she investigates with herself and also with her friend. She ends up being kind of haunted. I mean, it's not a spoiler. There's a ghost. It's a ghost story. It's a wintry ghost story. She ends up being haunted by this ghost, and through trying to figure out who this ghost is or was and why the ghost is there, she finds out more about her community and more about, I'll just say that, more about her community and also more about herself. So I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was a great start for India Hill Brown. There was a lot of there's a lot of history. There's a lot of like contemporary issues that face young black girls. There's a little bit of bullying that we get to see her work through, and I just found it heartwarming and sweet. I did shed a tear or two, and I really loved the friendship between her and her best friend that we got to see in this story. And it has a churchy vibe. There's definitely a Christian thing happening, and I totally didn't mind it. It was very, very sweet and lovely. So congratulations, India, for a great debut, and I look forward to reading further books of yours. The second middle grade book that I want to talk about is by Zetta Elliott, and it is Dragons in a Bag. Dragons in the Bag tells a story of Jackson, who is a 9-year-old boy living in Brooklyn. His mom is trying to thwart the landlord's attempts to evict them from their apartment, and while she does that, I think she has to go to court, she lets Jackson stay with Ma, who is his grandma and who's kind of weird. And so while he's staying with Ma, he realizes why Ma is so weird, and it's not a spoiler. He discovers dragons and learns things about his Ma. Ma is magical in a way, and so he's got to take care of these dragons. He has to keep them in the bag, and things happen. It was very cute. It was very, very sweet. As I told you before, I've read a number of Zetta Elliott's books, and I really love the way she puts magic into urban settings in a very seamless kind of way. And I really liked how she did this world. And Jackson was such a sweet and believable and naive boy who just wants to be loved, wants to figure out what kind of hero he can be. And also just loves his mom. So it was very, very sweet and very cute and really funny. So I would definitely recommend that. And the final book that I want to talk about is Hurricane Child by Kaysen Callender. This is set in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and here we follow Carolyn, who is, I believe she's a girl. I think she's 12, I want to say, 12 years old. Yes. So she's 12 years old. Her mom has gone missing. She doesn't know where her mom is. She doesn't know why her mom went missing. So she lives with her father, and also this shadowy figure that shows up in her home and seems to be following her around. She is trying to figure out what happened to her mom, what this shadowy figure is, and also what are these feelings she has for this classmate of hers. So it's really, really sweet. I did a full standalone review of it. I loved it. It was heartwarming, and it just gave me all the feels. So check out the standalone review if you'd like to learn more about this. And frankly, I did a standalone review of Dragons in the Bag, and you can check that out as well. So those are my 3 favorite middle grade reads of 2019. Now I'm going to move on to young adult. And the first book that I want to talk about is Magnifique Maura, I Am Magical. This is the first book in a series that is part novel, part graphic work, part comic, part homage to the gaming community. And it is just, it's a wonderful story of a group of Black, queer, predominantly female superheroes who live in this urban environment called a city and who are going to college and who live in a world where there are monsters. At the beginning of the story, we are already told that there's one Supergirl, but as the story continues, we obviously get to learn more about them. So this story kind of gave me Sailor Moon kind of vibes. I love the fact that these characters are very, very, very queer, many of them, very Black. There's an ace character in here as well. So there's a lot of representation around gender identity and sexual orientation and class. And we get to know a little bit about the origin stories / backstories of these students. And also, Brianna Lawrence, who wrote this book, really took us to some of the struggles that young college students, Black college students, experience in urban environments. And I hadn't seen that. It kind of, at times it felt like I was getting the, I don't want to say Gossip Girl because none of them are filthy rich, but the kind of like, oh, we're on the campus and we're living our lives and, you know, strange things are happening, right? You've got a school, but also strange things are happening. And in this community, in this world that Brianna has built, people know that there are monsters. So it's not weird that they see them. And so that's kind of cool to see people kind of respond to monsters as they would to like a storm in the sky or something. So I loved it. Another thing that I really loved about it is that it's got illustrations, and the illustrations were done by a number of different artists, and so just a lot of fun. The second book of the series is out, and I ordered it, so I'm looking forward to it arriving in March. Okay, so young adult, The Stars and the Blackness Between Them by Janata Petrus-Nassau. I have a standalone review of this book. I will just say that I absolutely felt like I was seen, like I was heard. I felt like the food that my family ate was represented here. And I loved the female-female, girl-girl romance that was sort of a slow burn. And that ending took me away. So check out my standalone review if you want to find out more about why I love this book. Pet by Akwaeke Emezi. This is the author's debut young adult novel, and Akwaeke Emezi just knocks it out of the park every time. You can see my standalone review of Freshwater. You can also see my standalone review of Pet, so I'm not going to say a lot here, but I will say that Jam, the main character, was just brave and brilliant and really, really sweet. I love the relationship between her and her best friend, Redemption. And the families, like the relationship between Jam's parents and their friends in the neighborhood, so like there were, I guess, 40-something Black folks, was also really cool. I like when authors develop the relationships of the parents themselves, and we can sort of see the intergenerational exchange there. So I really enjoyed it, definitely on my best for 2019. And I think now we can move on to the adult standalone novels. So the first one I want to talk about is the Book of Night Women. This is the first Marlon James book that I've ever read. I read it because Troy Towell had this hilarious and amazing and intriguing review of this book. This tells the story of Lilith, who finds herself enslaved. She's an African woman. She's enslaved on a plantation living in Jamaica, and she's just trying to get free. And she finds herself in the middle of, she's not an enslaved African woman to begin, but she is oppressed, and she finds herself in the midst of a slave rebellion that's laced with traditional African ancestral magic. And so she is obviously not in control of her circumstances, but we get to sort of see how she manages with a lot of violence, because Marlin is not shy about any kind of violence. She manages with that. She manages with her own power that she comes into contact with. And it's just this like beautiful, tropical, atmospheric, really harsh reality. So I definitely enjoyed it, but it was a hard read at certain points. But I'm so glad that I read this, and I'm looking forward to other books written by Marlin. I'm talking about all these authors like they're my cousin, by Marlon James. I also buddy read Lagoon with a friend of mine. Lagoon is written by Nnedi Okorafor, and in this story, an alien shows up in Lagos, Nigeria, and it impacts 3 people who get these powers as a result of the alien coming to Lagos and engaging with these 3 people. And so now they know that there's something otherworldly happening, and the community doesn't really know yet, but they're starting to realize it. So this book tells a story of like what happens when the people living in the community, so in the city, realize that there are others amongst them. And it's so cool to see how different pockets of people react, like how the science community reacts, how the political community reacts, how the religious community reacts, how the queer community reacts, how the scammers react. It's just so interesting, and it's funny. For a first contact story set in Nigeria, it has a lot more humor than I expected. So very cool. And there are a couple saucy moments, and I was totally here for that. I reread this goodie. This is Fledgling by Octavia E. Butler. Fledgling tells the story of Shori, who is a vampire. She wakes up from a concussion in a cave. She doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know what she is. She just knows that she's really hungry. And she spends the whole book finding out more about herself. What is she? Why was she beaten up? Why is her community gone? Are there others like her? And how can she find them? And it's got such, I mean, Octavia Butler's books really focus on race, and in particular the experiences of Black women. And so Shori is a Black girl. She appears to be a Black girl. She looks like she's about 11 or 12, but she's really a baby vampire, meaning that she's 51 years old. And you know, she's in a girl's body doing adult things, which is uncomfortable for a lot of people. So trigger warnings about all the uncomfortable things, right? But people are encountering her as a Black girl. So they're treating her as though she's a Black girl. And that is happening in a US community that has a lot of racism. So we've got the racism and whiteness issue coming through here, layered over a vampire trying to find her way back home. And I mean, anything by Octavia Butler is amazing, first of all, but I enjoyed this. I didn't find it as problematic as a lot of people do, so just be careful if these themes could be triggering for you. Woo! Okay. Gods of Jade and Shadow. I have a standalone review of this. It was awesome. Silvia Moreno Garcia is brilliant. That woman can write a sentence. Whew. Check out the standalone review. A lot of people love this book. This is the second Silvia Moreno Garcia story that I've ever read. Both of them have knocked them out of the park, and I just say, just read it and watch my review if you'd like to know why I am gushing over this book. So I won't talk about that. That was a spoiler. Let me talk about Elysium. I don't know how to describe this book. I'm just gonna read this little excerpt here. A computer program etched into the atmosphere has a story to tell. It's the story of 2 people, of a city lost to chaos, of survival and love, but the data has been corrupted. Listen, fam, like this, if you are into stories that confuse you but also delight you and intrigue you, then this is definitely the story for you. I think it's a debut novel from Jennifer Marie Brissett, and the characters change genders. There are animals that show up it's weird. Like, it's true science fiction and it's really weird, and I don't know how to describe it, and you just have to read it. Like, gender's changing? I don't know. If you look at it, it just says, wow, so amazing. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I'm going to see if I can get an interview with Jennifer Marie Brissett so that she can explain her book, because I sure can. I can't. But it was great. Sorry. Okay, and then the last adult novel I want to talk about is not a standalone. It was the first in a series, the Conscious Dreamer series. This is The Heaviness of Knowing, written by Sherilyn G. Brown. This was an F-Bomb, which is Feminist Book of the Month. I got a copy of this at WizCon. And this is really cool. This tells a story of two Black women. One is named Roxelle, and she lives on this planet. That's not Earth. And then there is Lauren, yes, who lives on Earth. Lauren works in like tech and programming, and she's working towards this like big secret project that the government's kind of involved in. And meanwhile, on the other planet, Roxelle is like, she is hired, well, no, she's in a caste that's responsible for communicating with humans on Earth through their dreams and planting different suggestions into their life so that she can influence their decisions, so that these humans can unknowingly be part of this huge master plan. But then Roxelle realizes that that master plan is really effed up, and so she has like a crisis of the heart, and then we see what happens. So this is book one. I liked this. This was a debut novel. It's actually dedicated to Octavia Butler, because Sherilyn Brown found out about Black science fiction when she first read Octavia Butler's books, which is basically so many people's story. There were parts of the book that are a bit overly descriptive and I think a little heavy-handed. I really like it when readers can kind of when writers can trust their readers to kind of get it, but I'm not mad at it. It was just a couple times I noted, like, sis, you didn't need to spell out all the things. We know they're kissing, right? You know, it's fine. But it was really good, and I'm going to continue in the series. And then, before I get to the short stories, The Deep, River Solomon, second book. They killed it. Mermaids, Africans, magic, queerness, octopi, whales, rituals, sex. Just good. It's just good stuff. Check it out. Check out my review if you'd like to find out more about why I loved it. Okay, so I'm almost done, but I have to tell you that I tend to have a hard time with short story collections because I find them sometimes, I find myself getting impatient, and by the time I understand a world and by the time I get into the story, it's done, and then I have to jump into another world, and sometimes it's hard to understand like how the worlds all connect with each other. So anyway, that's just that. But I loved these 6, I think, short stories. 7. All right. So I started off the year reading Ghost Summer Stories by Tanana Reeve Dew. These are horror stories set in a little Florida town. They're futuristic and they're scary, and they really, like, some of these stories gave me a Get Out kind of vibe, you know, the sort of, you know, taking up the anxieties and the fears of Black folks and looking at them in different ways. So there was like historical, like if you ever saw the movie Skeleton Key, like that kind of vibe, that kind of like US, it's the summer, they be ghosts, Black folks figuring it out, you know, a few zombies, like really, really interesting. So Tanana Reeve Dew is an amazing horror writer and Afrofuturist, and so you should, if you're not familiar with her work, Ghost Stories is a great introduction. There's one story about a woman and her baby. Wild. Friday Black. Yes, Jordan, I loved Friday Black. I know a lot of people haven't talked about this collection, but this is Nana Kwame Ajay Brenya's debut collection of short works, taking up the experiences, I think, of Black men in the U.S. and contemporary society right now, looking at issues like racism and consumerism, and I really enjoyed it. Some of the stories I was like kind of about, but I listened to it on audio while I was taking notes, and it just took me away. And my favorite story was a flagship story called Friday Black, which looks at consumerism and the phenomenon of Black Friday, and that just got it for me. Like, it was like psychological horror in some ways, and I loved it. Really great stories. Like, if you're ready for some harsh speculative fiction / psychological horror, some of those stories will really give it to you. Okay, Black from the Future. I did a standalone review of this, so I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but BLF Press published this collection of writing by Black women, and I loved it. It was great. You should get it. You should check out the review. I won't repeat myself there. Okay, 5 more and then we're done. New Worlds, Old Ways. This is a collection of speculative writing out of the Caribbean. All of the writers of the short stories are all from the Caribbean. It was edited by Dr. Karen Lord, who is also Barbadian and an exquisite writer herself. So I loved this because it took a lot of the themes like technology and robots and magical creatures and put and just explained them to me and illustrated them within a Caribbean context. And my parents are from Trinidad, and honestly, I have never even imagined, I hate to say, like AI in Trinidad or alien invasion in Trinidad or those kinds of things. Like I didn't really think about, I don't think about Trinidad in that way. And that's only because I associate it with my parents' home, and I think about like futurism in the context that I'm in, which is a US context, and that's really Western, and it's really problematic, and it's probably indicative of all sorts of internalized things. So reading stories from outside of North America really helps me, rewire the noggin. And New Worlds, Old Ways helped me do that. And it's just interesting because, like, I grew up with stories of magic and I grew up with stories of magic and futurism and all of these things coming out of the Caribbean, and slowly by slowly those images kind of shifted, right? But this is helping me bring them back. So, okay, last 4. Filter House is a collection of short stories written by Nisi Shawl. Hard to describe the different stories, but I have to say there are very few writers, probably less than 5, who write sentences so beautiful that they've actually driven me to tears. No word of a lie. Like, I shed a tear reading some of these stories because Nisi Shawl is just, oh my God, their stories just get under your skin in a good way, and just like, whew, just take you away, and then you're like, oh my God, did they just do that? So it was just a really great collection. So not a lot of people are reading Nisi Shawl, and you really should, because they're awesome. Okay, New Suns. This is original speculative works by people of color. This was edited by Nisi Shawl. I have a standalone review of that. I loved it. You should check out the review. Love Beyond Body, Space, and Time. Yes, this is an anthology. It's a LGBT Indigenous anthology of short works. It was gifted to me by Grace Dillon, who is an Indigenous woman and who actually does courses on speculative fiction by Indigenous folk. Grace gifted this book to me at the WisCon Festival of 2018, and it was really great. Like New Worlds, Old Ways, it really opened my eyes to how science fiction and fantasy and magical realism can play up and show up when layered through narratives of Indigenous peoples. Like, some of the stories just made my, they were like creepy and educational and really cool. Like, there was one story with a two-spirited character, and it was just like, fuck, yes, obviously, right? So this was really great. So I would recommend that. And then the final, my favorite book of 2019 was Two Moons Stories by Crystal A. Smith. I actually read this in, I think, January of 2019, and it absolutely haunted me for the rest of the year. These stories, though, Crystal A. Smith can write a short story. They are Black, they are lesbian, they are feminist, they are all of the things. My favorite story is, I think, the main story, the one that inspired the title and also that inspired the cover collage. It's a love story between a girl and the moon, and good things happen. Like a love story, a romance between a girl and the moon. Just the idea of that. Like, have you come across a story where there's a girl or a person falling in love with a celestial, like, manifestation? Not even like the actual moon, like the moon out there. Who does that? Crystal does. It was good. Okay. Those are my selections of my favorite books from 2019. Let me know if you're interested in reading any of them, if you have any thoughts about them. Thank you very much for watching this video right to the end. And if you would leave a comment, I would be very happy. And please use the word moon so I know that you watched the video all the way to the end. That's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching this video. I will see you in my next one. Please like, subscribe, comment, and remember to always read with purpose. See ya.